election as President of the Council, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
Merci bien, Monsieur le Président. Permettez-moi tout d'abord.
Mr. President, allow me, first of all, to say a few words in French. I would like to recall a quotation from the former director of the Louvre Museum, André Parrot, but also a famous French archaeologist, Charles Fellot. Why those two? Well, because it's those two who said something very important with regard to Syria, and that should be recalled by everyone. Charles Fellot was the first archaeologist who decrypted the first alphabetic order alphabet in the world, near the Syrian village of Al-Taqiyeh. And they both said the following thing: every civilized person has two homelands, their own and Syria. End of quotation.
Ceci m'amène.
That leads me on to another situation related to Hydro, who said one day that politics is a responsibility, it's not a frivolous matter.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. President. My esteemed colleagues in this council will perhaps remember that from the first day of this terrorist war led by governments of certain known countries, we said that the main goal of this war was to ensure Israeli occupation of Arab territories and to ensure that that occupation could go on forever on the basis of a plan put forward by the United States. The last decision of the US president to recognize what he called, and I quote, the Israeli sovereignty, end of quotation, over the occupied Syrian Golan shows just how correct we were at the time. This highlighted what he said highlighted my country in particular and the region in particular. This is a criminal project or plan for which the US government and its allies have used all tools at their disposal, moral, political tools, have been used by them to guarantee chaos and destruction in our region, to divide us on the basis of religious, ethnic reasons, to build a new reality as was imposed in the past. And under the Balfour Declaration, all of this covered by ideas and theories echoed by certain politicians, such as Creative Chaos and the New Middle East, the authors of this new project of occupation, have spared no effort. They've used all weapons at their disposal in their arsenal. They have defamed religion. They have encouraged radical extremist movements. They have applied pressure. They have spread false information, and all of that has been accompanied by support for terrorism, for foreign fighters under various groupings and names and allegiances. Daesh, the Al-Nusra Front, for example, who have attacked Syria, its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. When it comes to individual acts of aggression, we've seen three areas: aggression of the illegal alliance, all of this to bring down the Syrian government and its legitimate institutions. The illegal coalition that invaded Baghdad in 2003 gave rise to Zarqawi. You'll remember that he was the head of al-Qaeda in Iraq, followed by al-Baghdadi, who was the leader of the Daesh group. The illegal coalition attacking my country has given birth to another terrorist individual, El-Jolani, who heads up the al-Nusra Front, and apparently neither Baghdad or the Golan have nothing to do with these terrorists and those that share their extremist ideology. There is a person, al-Baghdadi, the one from Baghdad, who has extended influence beyond Baghdad and now is creating a new individual, Jolani from the Golan, to attack Syria and the Syrian Golan. This is no coincidence. Baghdad and Baghdadi and Golani, that's not a coincidence. And they didn't stop there. The enemy governments of my country have instrumentalized the humanitarian suffering, untold suffering of our population, in order to attack the credibility of the Syrian government and attack our reputation and the significant efforts that we have made to help the Syrian population overcome this situation. This uninterrupted practice can be seen in the US and allied forces taking hostage for 1,791 days now civilians in the Rukban camp in the Tanaf region with disastrous living conditions that the United Nations itself has seen. We would recall that the representative of the Humanitarian Affairs Office of the UN said that when the second convoy arrived in the region, a assessment of the refugees was carried out, and it was seen that 95% of these refugees during that assessment wanted to return to their villages. 95% of the Rukban camp want to return. So why are the Americans keeping them there, I wonder? And then we would recall that the Syrian government has taken all necessary measures to free those that have been detained in this camp and to put an end to their suffering. And we would call upon the Security Council and the international community to support, to ask all of the illegal forces to withdraw unconditionally from this area. And we would ask them to apply pressure on the Americans so that the inhabitants of the camps are able to leave freely and guarantee the security of humanitarian convoys aiming to put an end to the suffering of the inhabitants of this camp and those that want to dismantle this camp. I'd like to reaffirm to Israel, the occupying power, and its supporters in the US administration that their gamble to use the war against my country now for 8 years to destroy Syria and to reduce our role as an Arab, Islamic and regional leader has been a monumental error and a great failure. Mr. President, I reaffirm the preparedness of Syria to continue its cooperation with the Special Representative of the Secretary-General so that he can achieve his mission and facilitate inter-Syrian dialogue in order to bring about a political solution that will serve the interests of Syrians, which will guarantee the stability of Syria, its territorial integrity and its sovereignty, and make it possible to root out terrorism and put an end to the illegal foreign presence in Syria. There are a number of issues that echo what you have said, Mr. President. Syria reaffirms that the political process must take part under Syrian ownership of the Syrian people. We have the exclusive right to decide on the future of our country. Moreover, the constitution and everything relating to that relates to national sovereignty, and these are decisions of the Syrian people to be taken without foreign interference, as provided for by the UN Charter, international law, and all pertinent resolutions of the Security Council with regard to Syria. In conclusion, Mr. President, the representative of the US said at the beginning of his statement, referred to the murder of a 13-year-old and the body had been burnt, he said. That is a terrible lie. We did not kill or burn the body of a 13-year-old at the beginning of the conflict in Syria. Let me repeat, that is a lie. With regard to the child, yes, it was a Syrian child, but he died in Turkey on the Turkish coast because of criminal Turkish gangs who put 300 people on these launches rather than 50, and they are the ones that are responsible for the human trafficking. With regard to Omran, who was on the front page of the New York Times, the accusation was that the government had bombed Aleppo and killed that child, and then it was shown that that was false. That child, Omran, went with his father to Geneva and to The Hague and showed, in reality, that this was smoke and mirrors, and that he'd been they put makeup on him to appear that he was a child that was seriously wounded and told what to say. And this child then gave testimony in the presence of his father that the whole thing was a lie. The US said that the killing took place in Hamsharon. Well, as we say in Arabic, when there's no shame, you can say what you want. Everyone knows that the Commission of Inquiry that was supposed to go to Hamsharon refused to do it. The site was not examined. The UN mission did not go to Hamsharon, despite our insistence that they should, despite our repeated requests that they do so. And so then our US colleague concludes that there were deaths due to an attack of the Syrian government. It's a lie. It's a scandal. The colleague also said that he wants to send a third humanitarian convoy. Let me repeat that the United Nations and OCHA have seen themselves that 80% of the people in that camp want to leave it. So why would you organize a third or a fourth humanitarian convoy unless your real aim was to continue this hostage situation with the refugees, bartering them with Syria and the international community? They want to leave that camp. Syria wants them to leave that camp as well. The vehicles are ready to take them. The Red Crescent is ready. Let them go and stop with this bartering, blackmail. The US is imposing economic sanctions not just on Syria, but also on those assisting Syria. And the last finding of the US is this office linked to the US Treasury that controls assets, and they are now threatening ships transporting humanitarian aid to Syria with an embargo. But then the US wants to send aid to Rukban, they say. Crocodile tears, I tell you. At the same time as their government is preventing these vessels from transporting humanitarian aid to Syria. Then the positions that have been liberated by so-called democratic forces and the US forces. Can the Americans tell us where the Daesh leaders are? Where are they? Daesh is finished, isn't it? So where is al-Baghdadi? Where are these leaders? Where is this gang? Where is he and his gang located? Where are the Daesh fighters? What happened to those people? What about the inquiry? Where does the information come from? Where did the people come from? Who sent them? Where is the accountability there? Who is going to ask accountability of the Daesh terrorists for what they have committed in Syria and Iraq? Why is it that their leaders are now in hiding today or hidden? Their leaders have been transferred to camps under American control. Why? Why don't we shed light on the identity of those that have been arrested? Who are these leaders? Or are you planning to recycle them and send them to another front somewhere else? All of these things. For all of these things, I expect answers from my US colleagues. Syria is a victim of manipulation of the intelligence services under the aegis of the United Nations. Qatar said this. We spent $137 million to destroy Syria on the basis of a directive from Washington. That's what the Prime Minister of Qatar said. It's a scandal. That's enough. Thank you, Mr. President.
No request. Je remercie le
I thank the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic for his